Good evening. The council meeting of January 7 will come to order. Would ask all in attendance to turn off or silence your electronic devices, and if we can stand to honor God and country. Father, thank you for this new year, for all the potential it holds. Guide our minds. Let us release our grudges, our anger, and our pains, for these are nothing but binding chains. Father, protect our first responders locally and our soldiers currently being deployed to maintain our quality of life and to protect the great freedoms we enjoy as a nation. Let us live out this year in the most loving ways, the God-conscious way. Lead us to serve our city well, realizing that our steps make an impact and our words carry power. May we speak only after we listen well. May we honor rather than destroy. Let us remember that we are all one. May the year 2020 be for our city, our residents, and our businesses one filled with peace, prosperity, and love. Amen. Hand to heart as we pledge our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Persons wishing to be heard on items that are not on the agenda can turn in a form to the clerk to your right. And this evening would ask Finance Director Lynn Boswell to please approach the podium. As Lynn comes forward, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting has been awarded to the City of Temple Terrace by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its comprehensive annual financial report, known as CAFR. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. This evening, it is a pleasure to present the award for financial reporting achievement to our Finance Department, and I'd ask Lynn, would you like to say a few words?
Definitely. I definitely have a wonderful team this year. I'm very thankful, and I'm very thankful to Jim Ingram, the Assistant Finance Director. I have to let you know we do put in a lot of hours, and we really want to do the best for the City of Temple Terrace, and I hope that this is one of the evidences that we can show that we do that.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Jim, and please stay right where you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work, and I think we're in this one. Look. Council, if the minutes of the December 17, 2019 City Council meeting are acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections? I would say there is one correction on page 9, line 3. The last word of line 3 should change from request to information. And all in favor, please signify with aye with the correction.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. The minutes stand approved. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda, a 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. As speakers come to the podium, if you'd please state your name and city of residence. During public comment on items that are not on the agenda, the city manager and directors who are in attendance do make note of those items, and they will be followed up on as any of the items that relate to city business. The forms I have currently are for specific items. I would ask if there's anyone that would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move forward. Thank you. Consent agenda, a resolution approving the purchase of a John Deere 60G compact excavator. City Manager Stevenson will explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on consent agenda this evening. Item 7A is a resolution approving the purchase of a John Deere 60G compact excavator for our water treatment division in the amount of $64,920.25 from Dobbs Equipment utilizing Florida Sheriff's Association contract FSA 19-VEH 17.0, Spec 41. The payment to be provided from the funds out of account 410-1922-533.64-99. The current fiscal budget this year in the Water Enterprise Funds includes a funding amount of $70,000, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Are there any persons who would like to address council on this item? Seeing none, if the consent agenda is acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. 8A, a second public hearing and reading of Ordinance 1486, approving the comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 11407 North 52nd Street, CPA 19-01. The public hearing is now open. Mark Hudson, Executive Planner, Hillsborough County Planning Commission, will provide a brief explanation. Mr. Hudson.
Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. Staff presented this plan amendment to you in the month of August and also a couple weeks ago. So I'll go through the PowerPoint one more time just to refresh your memory. If there's any point you would want to ask me any questions, feel free to stop me. This is, as the mayor mentioned, TTCPA 1901. It's located on 52nd Street, just a couple of blocks from City Hall, where we're at today. And this is an area that gives you a better idea of the area that's been petitioned to change its land use. It is directly south of the Publix that is under redevelopment. On the border of the city of Tampa, which is separated from Temple Terrace by 52nd Street. A little bit of background, it was privately initiated. I'll note that the applicant and the applicant's engineer is here today to respond also to any questions you may have. It's 1.72 acres, and they've requested to go from office institutional to residential 18. I took some slides of the area just so you can get a little context of the area in question. This is the vacant parcel that's to the south where the new multifamily units would be built. And these are the existing 14 units also on the applicant's property that would be upgraded, and the facades particularly would be renovated. This is 52nd Street looking north. On the left is the city of Tampa, and on the right is Temple Terrace. These are two single-family homes across the street in the city of Tampa. From the existing 14 units, they currently have a Tampa land use of R35. And this is the multifamily units in the city of Tampa across from the vacant property that's also subject of this plan amendment and has a land use in Tampa of R50. These are some offices that exist directly to the south. And though this, I'm sure this view has changed somewhat since the redevelopment of the Publix is going on, this shows you the close proximity to the Publix from the existing units. This is the land use as it stands today. You can see the crimson color of the office institutional and also the red of the light commercial uses for the Publix. Across the 52nd Street, the city boundary, you can see the R35 and the R50, those multifamily land uses within the city of Tampa. And this shows you by your action tonight, if you were to approve the ordinance that has been supplied, how the map would change, and it would be the brown color of the Temple Terrace R18. This is the existing land use map, which was a topic of discussion at our meeting a couple weeks ago. Just to point out that, as noted at that meeting, most of the block is currently in light commercial uses, with the exception of the multifamily units owned by the applicant and a daycare on the southern portion of the block. Across the street in Tampa, most of the development is under multifamily use, and to the south in Temple Terrace is public, semi-public, and multifamily uses. This shows you the potential impact if this was approved. Currently, it would allow 15 dwelling units. This would increase to 30, and it also meets locational criteria for the business intensity zone overlay, which potentially, based on the zoning, which you'll hear later, could be up to 38 units. Staff did review this by the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace comprehensive plan. particularly in the areas of neighborhood conservation, community development, multimodal corridors and major activity centers, growth management, citywide development strategies, provision of public facilities and housing. And we felt it was consistent with those policies and also goals and objectives as noted. The full policies, goals, and objectives are in your packet. I won't read these as I did at last meeting, but these are the 6 policies that I believe most support the applicant's position, dealing with the request of going from predominantly an office use to multifamily use. And I'll just leave these up for a second. These are in your packets in their entirety. With that, we did present this to the Planning Commission on June 10th. They did recommend this Temple Terrace City Council find this consistent with the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. And of course, we're here for your direction at this hearing tonight. And with that, our staff recommends that the City Council adopt an ordinance finding TTCPA 1901 consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. And I will stand for any questions, and also again note that the applicant and the applicant's agent is here to respond to questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I would ask if there are any members of the public that would like to address council on this item.
Yes.
If you'll come to the podium, state your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Cynthia Spidell. I'm with our Door Group. I represent Mr. George Southworth, and our address is 4921 Memorial Highway, Tampa, and I have been sworn. We're here mostly to discuss concerns with the rezoning. However, since it's proceeding and necessitated as part of the comp plan amendment, we just wanted to get on the record that the vacant, my client's preference would be that the vacant portion that's immediately adjacent to his office remain office, the existing land use, which is commercial office. No, it's office/institutional, right? Office/institutionally, we would like that to stay that. When he purchased his property and developed his professional office way back when, it was with the understanding that that immediately adjacent property would be professional office as well, or some version of commercial, and not multifamily residential. So he has some serious concerns about 3-story intense development immediately adjacent. You saw from the pictures that Mr. Hudson so astutely took that the vacant lot is extremely narrow, so it would be extremely difficult to get that level of density in there without it encroaching onto the neighboring property. So, but we can talk more at the zoning, but we just want to get on the record that we like the land use the way it is and like to keep it that way.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address council on this item? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Council, questions? Oh. Council, questions? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the title of Ordinance 1486.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, future land use map for one parcel of land located south of Fowler Avenue and east of 52nd Street, consisting of approximately 1.72 plus/minus acres, by changing the future land use designation of said property from office institutional to residential 18 for CPA 1901, providing for amendment to the official future land use map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you. If the ordinance is acceptable, would entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 1486, approving the comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 11407 North 52nd Street, CPA 19-01. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the ordinance approving the comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 11407 North 52nd Street.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign.
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, a second public hearing and reading of Ordinance 1484, approving the zoning reclassification of 11407 North 52nd Street, RZP 19-01. The public hearing is now open. Council, please share if you have had any ex parte communication with either the petitioner, agents, or citizens.
I have had a phone call which did not, indicating they wanted to discuss the issue, and the phone call never happened. So there was a request for a conversation which did not happen.
I've had none.
I have had none.
I had one with a, I guess it's a neighbor, Mr. Southwall, or Southworth, excuse me, on November 22nd, 2019, discussing expert testimony referred to the city attorney.
Okay, I too had a phone call with Mr. Southworth on November 22nd for the same item.
Thank you. Planner Celeste Lau will provide a brief explanation of the item.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. You've heard this item on November 19th, so like Mark Hudson said, I'm going to keep it a brief presentation since you've already been presented this item before. So tonight, the item I'm presenting is RZP 19-01. Like I stated, this is the second public hearing and reading for subject property located at 11407 North 52nd Street. Again, some background on the subject property. It's located along North 52nd Street. Its current zoning is commercial office, and the applicant is proposing to rezone it to planned development to allow for multifamily residential. It currently has 4 existing apartment buildings there with 14 units. The proposed use is a 3-story apartment with a total of 38 total units for the site. That's including the 14 existing units, so there will be 24 new units. This development will have ground floor parking as well as 864 square feet of business office. Here is the concept plan that the applicant has submitted. The concept plan limits the uses to the site to residential and business office. As you can see in the blue outline, those are the existing 4 buildings. And the purple outline shows the proposed new building with the red outlining the office space. And here is the rendering that you saw as well on November 19th. And like Mark stated in his presentation, the site meets the criteria for the Business Intensity Zone Overlay District, which allows for a 25% increase in residential unit density. And with that, like Mark stated, the Planning Commission found this item consistent with the comprehensive plan. DRC had no more objections, and City Council approved of this item on November 19th. For the second hearing and adoption. Therefore, city staff recommends that council approve the ordinance for RZP 19-01. That concludes staff presentation. I will be here if you have any other questions. The applicant is also here for any
Thank you,
questions
Ms.
as
Lau.
well.
And City Clerk, apologies, I misspoke. I did have a phone conversation with Mr. Southworth. With that, we do have members of the public wishing to comment on this item. First, Mr. George Southworth.
George Southworth, City of Residence, Hernando Beach, Florida, even though I was a resident of Temple Terrace for over 40 years, from the time I was 5 years old until I was 55 years old, okay, or 50 years old. I am a registered structural and civil engineer. I have owned, and my family has owned, apartment complexes and office buildings for all of my life, especially my professional life. All right, so I'd like to say that I have some experience and can speak as an expert on some things. All right, when I bought this property many years ago and moved my business to Temple Terrace, I bought and developed this property because it was in a residential type office and commercial environment that I expected all my buildings to be surrounded by like kind. All right, behind us there was a Waterford Plaza, and this property to the north of me was zoned commercial office, and it was the intention of the original developer to build commercial office space. He sold the property. how this got combined into one 1.72 acre parcels when it had two completely different, uses. It was all zoned the same, so I guess it could, but the apartments were a non-conforming use. But the building itself, or the property that the guy bought, was clearly zoned for commercial and institutional use. It wasn't zoned to be multifamily. I don't believe that the three-story modern building is consistent in any way, shape, or form with the neighborhood. A three-story building, if you can fit it in a 35-foot height limit without granting a further variance, is going to be, I won't say it's an eyesore because it's a beautiful building. It just doesn't fit the residential type environment that they're trying to put it in. All right, they have it placed immediately adjacent to my property. They're going to have to pretty much nuke the oak trees that lie in between my building and it that I've gone out of my way to preserve for years. And it's just not compatible use with what my understanding was. I built an office building. I brought many jobs to the city of Temple Terrace. All right, I sold that business to the guy that had run it for me for 28 years. He's still there and leases that space. I have and operate my construction businesses out of the building that I built next door. All right, I enjoy the fact that I have a very nice looking residential office building. It's not an institutional looking building like this three-story apartment complex they're proposing. So I'm not in favor of the rezoning. You may have approved the comprehensive plan, but you don't have to approve the rezoning. I don't really believe that this meets the intent of a mixed-use facility for the intensive zoning, but I've asked Cynthia Spidell with our Dura group to come and speak as a professional planner to, those subjects. All right. I don't believe this is a good location for a luxury apartment complex. There's a number of things as an apartment owner that I see. A 960-foot apartment unit does not appear to be a very good size to call it a luxury apartment. All right, my concern is what this is going to become is additional student housing, and eventually, if they try to make it into a luxury apartment complex and it fails, it'll become more Section 8 housing in Temple Terrace. I think that it would fit wonderfully in the downtown Temple Terrace redevelopment site where you have the possibility of developing an urban environment, but that's not going to happen here. You're next door to a commercial shopping center. You're within walking distance of almost no residents. People that live in luxury apartments do not use multimodal transportation like buses. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be a fit for this neighborhood. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Cynthia Spidell, Adora Group, 4921 Memorial Highway. I have been sworn. I went out to the site. I'm a professional planner by profession, and we went out to the site and took a look at it, and clearly the architectural renderings that have been provided are definitely not consistent with the surrounding area. Additionally, when I went through your code of ordinances, it says a detailed textual statement explaining how the development will fit in the area, connect with surrounding properties, address multimodal transportation within adjacent to the site, identify all proposed uses, provide a list of requested waivers, and address other items with the planned development, including restrictions, covenants, limitations, hours, et cetera, should be on the final site plan, the conceptual plan. So the conceptual plan that was provided, and I understand that they've made a determination that's consistent with the business district. The business district has a list of requirements. I don't see anywhere where this concept plan complies with any of those requirements. In order to have a mix of uses, it's my experience that 800 square feet of non-residential would not qualify as a mix of uses. Generally, mix of uses means vertically integrated. You've got, a restaurant on the ground floor, and you've got, apartment living on the top floor. And again, due to the narrowness of the site, I can understand my client's concerns that a 3-story high-rise next to his, immediately adjacent to his professional office is, I don't know how they're going to get that in there without significant buffering. And your code does require buffering to ensure compatibility between uses. Let me see what else I have here. The bonus density, generally, we round down, we don't round up. I couldn't find anywhere in your code that says you can round up. 25% of 30 would be 7 units for a maximum of 37. I know it's small, but it's been my experience that you round down. You're supposed to have, again, the minimum of 2 land use types. 800 square feet of leasing office that's incidental to the principal use would not qualify as a mixed uses, in my opinion. Minimum usable green space of 3%, where's that? I didn't see that anywhere on this concept plan. The 35-foot height restriction, no idea how you're going to get 3 stories with 35 feet. And the site, and most importantly, to qualify for the business district, bonus density and intensity, the site and building design and scale shall be managed to ensure compatibility with the surrounding uses. I have no evidence of any attempt to be compatible with my client's property next door. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public that would like to address council on this item? If you'd please step forward and state your name.
May I ask one procedural question? What is the process for the final site plan? Because it's my understanding that this is just a conceptual plan. Does the final site plan go back through a public process? Do we have another chance to look at that, or is that a staff approval?
Site plan will come back to council for approval. It is not listed as a public hearing, but it will come back to council for final approval, at which time they'll have the opportunity to address all those
Pat
criteria.
Roberts, 11406 North 52nd Street, Tampa, Florida, across from this property. If this is approved, I'm just wondering what is going to be put up to buffer our property? Okay, with this being 3-story and looking into our property across the street. What, is there going to be something to protect us from what is going to come into this neighborhood? I just would like to see if you all would address that, because we've been there for 20 years, and we never expected this kind of a project to come into this area. It's it's a lot of Section 8. There's a few nice homes there. We've been holding off on doing any renovations on our home, certainly contingent on this meeting tonight, because, why bother, because if it's going to destroy our entire property value, why bother? And I know that we aren't part of your tax base here, but we are the ones that are going to be taking the brunt of it. So I'm just wondering what you all, or however this goes, I'm totally naive, of what is going to be put into the plan so that we are not having these people look into our property, into our house, and everything else that we're planning doing there, and also the other house that's next to us. So, thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to address council on this item? If you would come forward, state your name and your city of residence.
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Ivailo Ivanov, Capital Point. So just to address some of the points that were brought up tonight, I just want to reiterate that as the city manager mentioned, the site plan will come back to council, and all those items will be addressed and will have to be approved. So this is just simply a conceptual plan, so it is a rough idea of the buffers, and we've spent a lot of time with the planning staff to make sure that we're checking off all the requirements, so that way we don't have to go through this process again and go back to the drawing board. So what you're seeing there, there's been a lot of time spent discussing this with the planning staff to make sure that we're in compliance, to make sure that we're meeting all the codes. And with regards to the, we actually also, sorry, I just remembered, after the November 19th meeting, we actually went out of our way, went to speak with the city arborist, because I believe Member Ross mentioned about the idea of privacy, and it was brought up again tonight. And he suggested several different trees and palms that we can incorporate into the plan that we definitely intend to because it complements the project really nicely. And as well, we had our engineers go out there with a drone at the level of the building to see what was actually visible in the surrounding area. And given the fact that the new project is directly across from the multifamily Tampa residence, you would actually simply see that huge parking lot there with the multifamily. The Roberts property, which is down the street, is actually the first property on 52nd, between the Tico line. So actually, it looks across from the 52nd Square apartments that currently exist. So from that drone footage, you can't actually see anything in their backyard. There's no privacy concerns in that sense. And with regards to the commercial space, there shouldn't be any concern for privacy because obviously there isn't anyone walking around in a backyard in the evening or is concerned with their privacy. It's a public office space, so we're not concerned about that. And especially with the Publix being built right next door, actually that is a that has been approved obviously, and that wall of the Publix there is significantly closer to 52nd Square than what we're proposing. So I just wanted to reiterate those points and just make it clear that we have all the intention to bring something great and beautiful to the neighborhood and to improve the street. And we have invested interest on that street with 52nd Square. So we don't intend to do anything that would jeopardize the neighborhood or jeopardize the street. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank the applicant for your response. The public hearing is now closed. Council, questions? Seeing none, if the clerk would please read the title of Ordinance 1484.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning 1.72 plus-minus acres of land located south of Fowler Avenue and east of 52nd Street with an address of 11407 North 52nd Street from zoning classification commercial office to plan development for RZP 1901, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
If the ordinance is acceptable, would entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 1484, approving the zoning reclassification of 11407 North 52nd Street, RZP 19-01. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the ordinance 1484, approving the zoning reclassification of 11407 North 52nd Street.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Councilman Schisler.
Thank you. I might be wrong, but I believe this issue has come before this council 5 times. This is the 5th time it's been here. First time it came, it was unanimously denied on the comprehensive plan avenue. So then they didn't bring the rezoning issue up because it was a dead deal. Now the rezoning issue came back in a subsequent meeting, and it was passed 3-2. So that we had to bring back and at that point, I was against it at that point because of consistency issues, just like everybody was at the first time. Then I believe it came back for the comprehensive plan first reading. We had a first reading on the zoning, and I voted against it then twice, and I'm going to vote against. I voted against the comprehensive plan earlier tonight, and my position hasn't changed. I don't believe that to me, it's a consistency issue with the surrounding areas, and I believe it just doesn't fit in that area. And I cannot support the motion, the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman Schisler. Are there other comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign.
No.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 8C, a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Firefighter Pension and Retirement. Fire Chief Ian Kemp, Firefighter Pension Chairman, will explain. Chief Kemp.
Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager, Ian Kemp, your Fire Chief, as well as the Fire Pension Chairman. I'm here standing before you tonight for a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Firefighter Pension and Retirement. This ordinance allows current drop participants and future retirees to extend their participation in the drop by an additional 3 years for a maximum of 8 years. This will assist the fire department with retaining experienced management personnel over the next 3 years The extension of the drop is also a recruitment and retention tool for the fire department. The fire pension members formally voted to approve the drop extension. The fire pension plan's actuary is projecting no additional cost to the fire pension plan. It is recommended that the city council approve the proposed ordinance extending the drop from 5 to 8 years.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any members of the public wishing to address council on this item? Seeing none, council, questions? Seeing no questions, if the clerk would please read title of the ordinance.
I think you may have a question.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration and Elections, Article 3, Officers and Employees, Division 3, Pensions and Retirement, Subdivision 4, Firefighters of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Temple Terrace, amending Section 2-205, Deferred Retirement Options Program, drop, providing for severability of provisions, providing for codification, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
If the ordinance is acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading.
Move to approve the ordinance as read.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Councilman Schisler.
I apologize. This probably would have been a question, so if I'm out of line, if I'm out of order, please let me know. But is this for 8 years, or is this for perpetuity? I've heard both in discussions on this.
So this is, the individuals that are currently in the drop plan now would be able to extend their drop from 5 years to 3 years. And those employees that are not yet in the drop will be able to, they have a 5-year drop, and then they will also, I think they have to fill out some paperwork, and then they can extend it for an 8 years as well.
So there's a sunset on this.
This particular ordinance, there is no sunset. No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion, council? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, January 21 of 2020. Next, a resolution approving an interlocal funding agreement with Hillsborough County. Finance Director Lynn Boswell will explain.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. We were awarded a grant, if you would like to accept, to be able to replace a water line within within the University Mall area. This grant is the regular CDBG that they allow us to give after we put in the application. We put in this application about a year and a half ago, and we went ahead and listed all the different projects. The earlier CDBG that you approved very recently was for 1819. This one is 1920. I stand for questions.
Are there members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Council questions?
No.
If acceptable, would entertain a motion authorizing execution of an agreement between Hillsborough County and the City of Temple Terrace to fund initiatives under the Community Development Block Grant Program in the amount of $248,155. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Council business. Is there any carryover business from our previous meeting? Councilman Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand from Mr. Stevenson, I had some conversation this week. You recently received the map of the proposed trail, is that correct?
We've got a map from the county. We have been able to retrieve one of the maps that we had from Temple Terrace. Staff is currently trying to get the map from the MPO they have a list of trails on. This is government. Everybody's got their own map. We're trying to create a map that is consistent just for us so that we can share that with you. We can probably get that done by the end of the week, and I know in February first meeting in February, I think we've scheduled a workshop to kind of talk about the trails. I'll try to get that map out to you just as soon as I can so that you can
Okay, well,
have an idea of what all this looks like.
okay, thank you. Well, of particular interest, so you don't go around wondering what I'm trying to get at, the bridge. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to either figure out whether this bridge is a non-issue, or whether it's something we need to decide on, or whether it's something that has already been decided on that we need to, it's only a couple answers. Is there gonna be a bridge, yes, no, or it hasn't
Well,
been decided?
The bridge has always been on a schedule of projects for years and years and years. It goes back quite some time. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. This council will direct me to whether or not we want to pursue that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at,
It's
is
my
where the trail.
understanding, it's my understanding, the trail and all the legwork that's needed to get the trail, because the trail actually exists in a TICO easement. All that work's been done years ago. The idea of crossing the bridge is certainly an issue that has been brought up with some residents that they don't want the bridge. Now, the trail, the trail has no purpose if it doesn't have a way to get across the bridge, I guess is what it boils down to. You got a trail that leads nowhere, why build it? So, the trail that comes off of Temple Terrace Highway and kind of hooks over to the proposed crossing of the bridge there at Railway Park is part of a list of projects that is on the master list of things to get done. So if that's one of the things that council directs us to remove, we will certainly do that.
Okay, well, I think that's premature. I'd like to see how this thing's supposed to look. I mean, we're talking about just a bridge. I don't know where the trail would go on the west side of the river. So that's what I'm trying to.
Well, the trail ends up dead-ending right at the end of White Way, I'm sorry, which is what we have designated as Railway Park. There is a section of property there, is a parcel that the city owns that would connect from the west side of the river to River Hills, basically. And it was always intended to provide a mechanism to connect Rolling Terrace to the rec center. That's the original intent. And being able to cross the river there was always one of those things that it seemed to work because we owned a piece of property there. TICO's also has a piece of property adjacent to it that they would provide to us to use as well. So it just seemed at that point in time, and this is years and years and years ago, that it was a viable project to make that connection east to west.
Okay, well, at some point, when you have the adequate data and maps and stuff, I'd like for us to have a discussion about this before whether we want that on the list or where we want to. I think we need to have some discussion about it.
Yeah, let me try to get this map out, and again, I hate to
Okay.
give you 3 maps and have to explain where all these maps are generated from.
Okay.
We can get you one map, and certainly we'll do that before the workshop, and we can get prepared to have that discussion. And again, if council decides they don't want that trail as a project, we can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other carryover business, council? Moving on to new business. Is there new business, council? Mayor had just a brief update on today's MPO meeting. One of our discussions was on the trailways, and one of the key trailways that impact our city was the Harney Road in US 301 trailway. That has been slightly modified. It'll now be to a Fowler connection point, which will be more citizen-friendly and probably result in a higher usage. So that was one shift that was made and approved today at MPO. Second item was the HART BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit, is looking at a north-south connector. And so to be from the USF area into the downtown area. And I raised a question today and was very very quickly identified by one of our county commissioners that Councilman Schisler had brought up the concern yesterday at the Hart Board meeting, so I might invite Councilman Schisler to come in as well. But one of the discussion points was citizen input, citizen discussion around where that North Point connector would be. And there was discussion around, we have someone from Seminole Heights, we have someone from west of 275, but there was no participation from anyone in the USF area, or certainly no citizen participation from Temple Terrace. So the concern I raised was we would certainly like to have some Temple Terrace involvement and insight there. And I don't know if Councilman Schisler has anything to add from the Heartline presentation yesterday.
Yes, thank you. Not really. There was a lot of discussion yesterday regarding the origination and the terminus and where the crossover is going to be and how they're going to have the dedicated bus lines off of Florida Avenue onto Nebraska and then again up onto Fowler Avenue. They did comment about the putting together the citizens group, and the question was raised, well, how many people are actually involved in it? And so far there were two. Okay, one from Forest Hills and one from, I believe it was Tampa Heights, which is the Seminole Heights area in that regard. I had asked, what about East County and east of that area flowing through there? And the answer that I was given pretty much by FDOT, and I kind of sort of knew this because this is not the first time this issue's come up. We've been beating this horse for several years now, was that the original study is already cast in stone, and it was, but that future studies will be available, but a lot of it's going to be contingent upon what happens with the adjudication of the sales tax lawsuit up in Tallahassee with the Supreme Court. So the long answer is we've got some people. We've set the wheels in motion for getting somebody, whoever that may be, from our area involved in the overall discussions. But we got to. It's kind of difficult because again, it's turning into a horse built by a committee, which is a camel, and there's so many people involved with it right now, and they're just trying to make it bigger, and they're trying to move people from the shareholder group or the stakeholder group into the technical group, and take people out of the technical group, and it's just everybody's just doing this at this point. So it's kind of humorous to watch, but we'll do what we can to get somebody involved with it. And I'm pushing for the next study, okay, which the study will be from East County and South County through the interstate, down Fowler Avenue, including Temple Terrace, no matter how we come in through there, and including our downtown redevelopment area. But it's kind of difficult because we don't have anything there yet. So it's hard to, it's not a build it and they'll come. They're telling me, well, what do you have there? And so that's another whole issue. So,
Can I ask
but thank you, Madam
question?
Mayor.
When you say there are two people who are involved, is that because no one else volunteered, or
There hasn't been that reach out that has been extended yet from Hart staff and those who are indicating it. And I think that's why both of us in earnest spoke up and said our expectation there would be more than two citizens countywide involved in this. And certainly if it's a connector from the USF area going into downtown, we have very strong
Definitely.
expectations that the Temple Terrace community will be represented.
Yeah.
Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me interject something that goes back 10 or 12 years. The original study for the North-South BRT terminus point right outside City Hall on this bus stop right here on 113th Street. I don't know whatever happened to those plans. A lot of time has gone by and a lot of personnel at Hart have changed, but I would certainly encourage us to have that conversation because the original north-south plan stopped and turned around right here and included Temple Terrace. And at that point in time, Mr. Brad Parrish, some of you may remember him and I worked real hard with Hart to get that done. Now, it's my understanding that is now changing without our knowledge. And just to let you know, we worked real hard to get that. And I'm not quite sure that anybody has informed us other than what I just heard from the two of you that, in fact, that's changing, so.
Yeah, the brief discussion at MPO today seemed to be centering around the Florida Fowler corridor, and there was a brief mention again of that infamous Fowler study. And so we will continue to be very vigilant in monitoring what that looks like and what that encompasses. So, any other new business? We will move to City Manager's report. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things here, just to highlight a couple of things that we have coming up. Farm Night is now on the horizon for February 21st. Obviously, it's an M&B Products. This is an annual thing that has been done for a few years over the past and been a very good success for the city and M&B Products. Tickets are available at the Family Complex, Lightfoot, City Clerk's Office, and the Chamber of Commerce. Tickets are, I feel like a commercial, $25, $10 for school-aged children. I'm just reading script, that's all.
Wait, there's more, right?
There is more. No, just to kind of get it out there. Again, this is one of those things we try to make sure that we blast out several times. The other thing is just to remind council that we have a public outreach meeting scheduled for January 23rd, I'm sorry, at Lightfoot at 7 p.m. It's to, we've invited the Florida game and fishing game lady back to address residents in our community about living with coyotes. It still seems to be a problem that keeps bringing up to our attention. So they have agreed to do that. It is a rather informal meeting that we will have. But I think that there will be a lot of good information for everybody. So hopefully everybody kind of puts that on their calendars. If you're interested, please show up. It's at Lightfoot at 7 o'clock, January 23rd. And that's all I have.
And Mr. Stevenson, if I could ask, for those who might not be familiar with Farm Night, and the reason we are doing a commercial is the direct benefit back to city, could you share who will be the recipients of this year's Farm Night?
The proceeds will go to our Leisure Services Department and in conjunction with Focus Academy.
Very good. Thank you, sir. City Attorney's report, Ms. Shashan.
Thank you. The only thing that I wanted to mention tonight is that the interlocal agreement that we had with the City of Tampa with regard to providing each other attorneys to advise our code enforcement, with them, magistrate, with us, our code enforcement board. It expired in September of 2018, and Tampa and the city of Temple Terrace, we continued it on. Basically, it was kind of a month-to-month continuance, and we have been notified by the city of Tampa because of the agreement required a 30-day notice. We have been notified that the city of Tampa does not wish to continue with the interlocal agreement anymore. So because our ordinance does require that an attorney be available, a person does not need to attend every meeting of the Code Enforcement Board, but they are entitled to have one because the law does prevent the city attorney from advising the board and also prosecuting. The city attorney can do one or the other, but not both. So therefore, since they are covering our January meeting because they had to give us a 30-day notice. So tonight is our Code Enforcement Board meeting, and Tampa will be providing somebody to advise our board tomorrow. After that, the city manager, I anticipate getting together with the city manager and coming up with a new plan or finding another person who could serve as legal advisor to the Code Enforcement Board, and that would, if it's under a contract, that would be coming back to you at a later date.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before council this evening? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. And Happy New Year.
It's only 1 a.m. for you.